Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together every week, we have watched a science fiction film, we talk about it. It really is that simple. And coming up on this episode, we'll be discussing a new film that came out on Netflix called Oxygen. It is a French film directed by Alexandre Aja. So we're going to be looking at this. The basic premise is about a woman who wakes up in a pod. It's like a science fiction-esque pod where it seems like it may be a medical-based thing. It could be more of a cryosleep-based thing. But the big trick here is that she doesn't remember who she is or why she's here, and she can't get out. There is an AI inside the pod who can talk to her and maybe help work out what's going on, but that is the basic gist of the premise. Thing buried with Ryan Reynolds, but a more sci-fi take on it where there's some more things to do.
She's running out of oxygen.
That is a key part of the premise, which yes. And she starts off quite low. She's at like 42% or something like that when the movie starts. So we're not even like starting at a nice high amount. So that is the basic premise. We will start spoiler free for this because after all it is a new movie and there is a lot of spoilery stuff to talk about. Because it doesn't reveal everything at the end. It does gradually reveal things throughout the film, but I'd say it's quite early before you're into spoiler territory with stuff that you probably shouldn't know going into it. So yeah, that's Oxygen. It does star Mélanie Laurent, who was in Inglourious Bastards, which is like the one thing that I know her from. So
Me too. Yeah. Shoshana.
Yes, Oxygen. So it's been since we did a straight to Netflix release. In fact, it might have been a really long time actually, because I think I Am Mother and maybe like one other movie kind of put us off wanting to do them so much. Now, we almost did one a few months ago called Space Sweepers, which Tara done me dirty, and I watched half the movie, and then she's like, can we push recording? And I'm like, well, we're not doing this movie then, because I'm not watching that again. But, just needless to say, Netflix movies don't have the best reputation in general, and
hey, Netflix movies are like, I want to say top seller, but it's our most watched video.
That is true. What happened to Monday for some reason is doing very well numbers wise on YouTube, but I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there. I think there's some old people who get confused and think YouTube is Netflix, and they'll go looking for a movie on YouTube thinking it's Netflix, and then wonder why we were talking about it instead.
Well, they get the whole plot from us, so
yes,
same thing.
And the old people is the kindest explanation I have for the people who seem to think it's going to be the movie and then it's just us. Because the word review in our faces isn't enough to dispel the idea that maybe, just maybe, this isn't the movie you're going to be watching. So
it does have a lot of likes.
So to anyone who's clicked on this thinking you're going to be watching Oxygen, because why that would be on YouTube for whatever reason.
Just get your free 2 weeks from Netflix.
Yeah, and then go watch it.
It's available everywhere.
Yes. But hey, let's get into it then. So I suppose what with that discussion of Netflix movie quality being a little on the ropey side, not terrible, just really annoyingly in the middle and kind of bland, generally speaking, where it seems to often peak at 7, right? It seems to be in the 5 to 7 out of 10 range almost very consistently. Though obviously there's exceptions, Roma, for example, was fantastic, and I really liked The Babysitter when that came out, but for the most part, there is a middling quality to Netflix movies. So with that in mind, I asked Tara the question, did you enjoy, and indeed elaborate, because if you just say yes, I'm going to be really mad, that's not good radio. How did you feel about Oxygen?
Well, I too have bad history with Netflix movies. I see a trailer and it looks interesting, and then it says only on Netflix, and I think skip. No, thank you. And it's not that there haven't been gems, like you listed 2 that I haven't seen. I watched their first one, The Beast of No Nations, and thought that was an incredible film. Just everything I watched since is kind of garbage. So, or just middling. Like, okay.
Yeah, a lot of middling.
This one is okay. I like half of it a lot. And then it goes places, and although it's interesting, it just becomes an okay movie from there.
I like the idea. This is almost one of the most insulting like ways you can respond to how did you feel about a movie or a TV show or a video game, any piece of art. Say, how did you feel about that? And you go, it's interesting. It's interesting.
It's very claustrophobic, which I think is, part of the experience, and it's shot all right. Except for one part where it just keeps spinning around and around and around. That part I didn't enjoy watching. It's getting a little nauseous. But yeah.
What,
it's okay.
What I'll add to that is the claustrophobia is that it has a surprisingly active 5.1 mix. There's a couple of points where this pod has like a little like robot arm that comes out and moves around, and the 5.1 audio did a really good job of like making it feel like it was whizzing past my head and like going round the circle and all that. So I appreciate the sound mix if nothing else. Yeah, what did I feel about it then? I would say it's on the... Yeah, okay is a good phrase. I would say on the upper end of middling. Is that damning? I think from a concept point of view, there's a lot of concepts in this that I really like. What's funny is I actually think I got more interested in the film in the second half, which seems to be the opposite of how you felt. And I think it's partly because in the first half, I thought the way it was using its very, very bottled premise, right? Everyone knows I love a bottle story, right? I love a bottle movie, a bottle TV episode where it's all set in one location, and you don't get more bottled than a coffin, essentially. And I think the way it was progressing through that felt less inventive to me than other examples. I guess Buried's the one you compare it to the most, but even other examples like I don't know, like a Saw or anything where there's just a couple of characters like in a room or something like that. I wasn't necessarily feeling the spark of like creativity and how it was like getting around that by having story elements come in and how it was pacing its like storytelling, to the point where it's almost like because it sets up so early on that okay, there's a complete mystery as to who she is, where she is, why she's there, what led to these events, that it becomes kind of this chasing a mystery and like speculating over every little detail that's presented to you, rather than just enjoying the tension of her trying to survive and like, you know, figure out a solution before the oxygen runs out. Instead of focusing on that, I almost didn't care about the ticking time bomb of death. I was just too busy trying to think and second guess everything it was telling me, because I knew it was playing me. I knew it was setting seeds for later reveals and stuff like that. To the point where there was at least one thing that I guessed. There was definitely some things I didn't, because it actually throws a lot at you. There's a lot of things that are revealed as the movie goes on. But I think that's a bit of a detriment. I think once it kind of played its bigger hand, I enjoyed it a bit more, because we got some more interesting visuals and the music kind of ramped up a little bit more at that point. And some of the more interesting science fiction kind of questions were raised then. Because before that, it was about, okay, what's going on? But once we knew what was going on, and it was like, okay, this is the decision she has to make. This is what the story, in many ways, is probably about, really. Once that came into it, it was a bit more interesting. So I actually think the second half was probably a bit stronger. Not completely, don't get me wrong. I do think it gets a bit... The little flashbacks to, like, you know, the life before as the memories are coming back, I thought were a little bit... you know, we want this to feel ethereal and indie-like, and we're going to have these little emotional moments that are just snippets of things.
Yeah, and it's only triggered like through pain, but she's able to really hone in on details. Like, not quite sure. It's like she has an enhance feature in her brain. Enhance that image I had in my dream.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, interesting ideas, some nice moments, but yeah, I wouldn't. It's one of those annoying like movies, and in a way, no, the movie itself isn't annoying, but it's annoying in terms of quality, because it's at that level where I appreciate a lot of what it's doing. I can't dislike it and I can't hate it, but it's just this missing that extra spark to actually put it into. I'm excited to really talk about this, and I'm like, I want to recommend it and all these things. And that's like more frustrating, because at least if it was a train wreck, it'd be like, okay, here's why it's a train wreck, here's why it just does not work in any level. But this level, and this is why Netflix movies are so goddamn annoying, is because a lot of them fall into this territory of, they're just, I wouldn't call this one bland, because usually I'll call them bland, but it still kind of ends up in the same territory of, it's just not quite there. And that's in many ways more frustrating to actually talk about, especially when you're doing an in-depth discussion on a review show like this. So,
I like in the later half, there's like a body horror element that comes in, and that part I was very like into. You know, that like brought me back into the movie for sure.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I can't even say what I liked about the second half, because it's all it's all super spoiler.
Vague,
it's all super spoiler territory.
I don't know if just saying body horror is in it is spoiler.
I don't think so. I mean, when she wakes up, she's hooked up to a bunch of things in the pod.
She has to like Neo her way out of things.
Yeah. And the opening is quite an interesting visual, because the opening she's in like a, not a cocoon, but like a sort of like a suit that kind of starts to rip apart as she's breathing, and she has to rip her hands out of it. It's kind of like almost like a mummified kind of thing, but like a more scientific level. It's like a futuristic scientific,
and it's very thin, and so she's able to like just break through it. Yeah, with just like her face.
And there's a lot of speculation, of course, as where she is. Like the obvious examples, is she even on Earth? The other example I thought of early on was, is this like after the apocalypse? Is she sitting in a world that is desolate and there's nothing there? And then there were some crazier ideas I had about, maybe she's at the bottom of the ocean, or maybe she's like, I don't know, like my mind was rumbling with like so many ideas of like situations where, because it makes you question what's on the outside, because we never see it. Well, we do eventually, but like early on when the mystery's like at its thickest, you don't see it. So, and of course, once she starts talking to people over the phone, it's like, well, okay, it's maybe not the apocalypse, but it could still be something, future dystopia or something. I don't know.
People are giving her answers that are like, that are questionable, so like, can we even trust what they're saying? So there's interesting stuff there. It's funny, like it almost feels like I get why you have the ticking time clock of death as well as all the mysteries, but the mysteries, especially where it goes and how intricate it actually is by the time we get to the end, it does kind of feel like they're a little bit at odds, or they're not balanced properly, where I felt like the auction thing I was barely paying attention to, and I think that's maybe a fault of the direction of the script, where it wasn't balanced in the, like, I think maybe because there's so much unknown at the start that you're just focusing on all the different possibilities, because it's not just, okay, where is it? When is it? Like, who is she? And don't get me wrong, she has to, on some level, have amnesia to start with for the plot to work, because if she just knew who she was, it wouldn't play the same way. But but I don't hate the explanation for it.
No, not do I. It's actually one of the more interesting things in the movie. The point I'm making though is that there's so many things that I feel like if you could remove one of those elements at the start and then introduce it later on, that would be better. But the problem is that it kind of all has to be introduced at the start, because it all has to be there from the start, or it wouldn't make sense. I think what I would say is that I would not have the oxygen be a problem for a while. I would focus it on being, where is she and who is she, and then maybe halfway through the movie, and I know it's the title of the movie, but I think it'd be okay for halfway through the movie for the computer to go, oh, by the way, your oxygen's running out because you're awake, and like there's only, and maybe at that point you go to like, oh, it's 40% left, but we do that halfway through as opposed to right in the first 2 minutes. So, because I wasn't thinking about it anyway at that point, so maybe it should have become more of a concern later on. I don't know, but a balancing of its elements like that might have, I think, made for a more refined movie. But how did you find the lead performer then? Because she kind of has to obviously carry the whole movie.
Right. I mean, she's excellent. She's a great actress, and she does a good job. Like when she gets emotional, like it looks very convincing. And I thought, I thought she was quite good. I know she is good because there's a good like 30 minutes where I wanted to eat food, so I had to like turn on the dubbing so I could still watch the movie and make food.
What a haphazard admission that is. 30 minutes of the 100-minute runtime was watched dubbed, but the rest of it was watched subtitled with the original language.
Yes, yeah. But as soon as I was able to, I switched it back because it's noticeably much better.
Yeah, my bigger problem at the start of this movie is that one of my cats decided to lie right in front of me with the head covering the lower third of the screen, so I had to kind of strain my neck to actually read the subtitles.
Well, you're not going to move the cat. Like, it's so rare that they choose to cuddle. It's not a joke. Like, it's true. I don't get to choose when it's cuddle time with kitty cat. They choose.
They do choose.
Yeah.
It's the cat's in charge, and I accepted that a long time ago. That's fine. But yes, it almost led to some real hilarity because when Wesker finally moved, Garrus jumped up on top of the unit where the TV is and almost sat right in front of the screen, right in the middle where the subtitles were. Luckily, he went to the side, so it wasn't that bad. But
I see. I just found out what your cat's name is from because of the release of the Mass Effect trilogy. Oh, that's where the name came from. For some reason, I thought it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
No.
Giles is his name. I was thinking his name was Garrus.
You thought it was Rupert Garrus was the librarian in Sunnydale High. Oh well.
The guy with the glasses and the books. Yeah, so librarian.
Typically, yes, librarians.
Professor or magician. I don't know. I don't remember the show.
He's a librarian, although magician is not necessarily a completely absurd thing to say because he did practice the dark arts when he was in his college years, but that led to some bad things that came back to bite him. So,
are you proud that you can quote Joss Whedon lines? Are you really proud of that?
Why did you have to? That's dirty. Why did you have to do it dirty like that? You brought Buffy into this conversation, and then you whipped around with the Joss Whedon guilt. Come on,
you're so proud.
Yeah, no, she's pretty good. The actress is, is solid. She has to do a lot. She has to act on her back, which I can't imagine. I mean, on one hand, it might be quite a comfortable shoot in many ways because you don't have to do a lot of movement.
I'm sure those chambers are ergonomic.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind that for a lot of it, it'll be an open top, so the camera's there, and it won't actually be as claustrophobic as it actually appears on screen. In the same way that when they're shooting in cars, a lot of the times the front of the car's missing because they've got a camera rig there instead. So I can see that being whatever, but she has a lot of range things to do despite her confinement. She has to learn a lot of big things about her life. She has to learn a lot about where she is, who she is, all that stuff. But she also has to do a lot of little physical things here or there, and I think she does a good job of expressing the pain or expressing the not the disgust, but just the nerves or the hesitation and all that kind of things. Because ultimately the movie relies on her actually experiencing all this, and it would completely fall apart if she couldn't carry that. If at any point she felt disingenuous as to the situation she's in, and admittedly, if there is any faults in the performance, maybe we missed them because we don't speak French. So, but at least in every other aspect, it seems pretty solid. So,
and the dubber was just so awful. Do not recommend watching this dubbed.
Yeah, at
least in English.
I never recommend watching anything dubbed. It's just it's a bad idea in general.
But what's funny when I had the dubbing on is that I still had the English subtitles and they did not line up.
They really do. But
Yeah.
To be fair, that is the correct thing for them to do, where you have to essentially get the point across, but try and make it fit the length of the same sentence as much as possible. So that's why they'll rephrase things and they'll do whatever to try and make it fit. Which I don't really approve of dubbing, but there are situations where that's more relevant. Like, maybe in a video game or something animated where dubbing's not necessarily as much of an issue.
Sure.
Although there's some purists out there who will still insist on playing video games in Japanese or watching their animes in the original language. Let's move into the spoiler territory then, because I think there's a lot to get into here and more specifics to go through, and the details of how this pod operates and the AI that talks to her, named Milo. And I don't know her name, obviously. Their name's very, very hard to forget because it's very emphasized as the movie goes on once it's brought up. But for a long time, we don't have a name because she doesn't know her name. So I kind of avoided it until this point. But since we're in spoilers now, I will call her Liz. But, she's talking to this Milo computer. And I guess one of the complaints I kind of had about the way the movie operates with the operating system is that I felt like there was times where, and sadly, the final solution. Well, that's a really weird way of saying that. The final the thing at the end she has the idea for to save the day, right? Is what I mean.
Sure.
I don't understand why the computer didn't immediately suggest this like ages ago.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought.
Because the second, and we'll get into where she actually is, but the second they revealed that there was other pods with people who were already dead, right? And we'll explain all this properly in a minute. But as soon as they said that, I'm like, well, what about their oxygen? Is them get any oxygen they can take? And it played it at the end like it was this big moment where she had this great idea, and she's like, "Hey, Milo," like because she's told earlier on that if she doesn't have at least 2% left in her oxygen, then she won't survive being woken back up. Although that did, even before we found out that even if there wasn't even if all the pods where people had died technically had been damaged, so the oxygen all escaped or whatever it could have been. If the only 2%, although admittedly maybe that's a bit risky still at 2%, like surely taking 10% from someone who's got 100, so that she can have a safe wake up call when she gets where she's going. Surely that would be doable, and that wouldn't be. I mean, you wouldn't really be risking the other person if they've still got 90%. If 2% is the bare minimum, if the other person's still got 80-90%, no one's got to cry over it. It kind of felt like at the end that this shouldn't have been the problem that it appeared to be throughout the whole movie.
Maybe the ship had some sort of like safety mechanism designed to where, like, so long as they had a certain percentage of people that made it, then that would be enough to do the big ultimate plan that the humans have for this journey.
Yeah.
So instead of risking everybody losing oxygen in order for everyone to survive, there's like we'll just prioritize one pod at a time. Maybe that's like, it's just a programming error.
Yeah, but the computer, like Milo feels like when she suggests this, he just sort of goes, yes, that would work. It'll take some time, but I can do it while you're asleep. And that's kind of
like, why didn't he just put her back to sleep then anyway if she didn't need oxygens to survive? I don't understand. Why did he wake her up at like 42% oxygen? And it doesn't make sense. No. And put her back to sleep.
Well, no, he didn't wake her up. It was a glitch that effectively woke her. Something was overheating. Like there was some mumbo jumbo to explain it, but she wasn't woken up on purpose. Like the waking up was like a side effect that just kind of happened.
Right. But they have like the thing to put her to sleep so that it would be okay the whole time.
That's true. Well, no. So there is another hurdle though. There's another hurdle where the device or the process that malfunctioned needs to work for everything to go smoothly for the rest of the trip, right? So they're in space, okay? We're in spoilers, right? There's a trip, right? But so one of the big things they have to do over the course of the movie, she has to find a way to divert power from other processes in the pod to make that one work. That's the big main hurdle. So she can't go back to sleep until that's done. And it's like, okay, which ones are non-essential that we can do? And I forget the first one she does, but it was truly non-essential. It didn't feel like a big deal that this was turned off. But then it was like, okay, what can I then turn off? Because it wasn't enough. It was like, okay, what second thing can I turn off? And Milo's like, oh, everything else is essential for to have no effect on your life expectancy. But that's not really true, because the second one she turns off later in the film, after some, hubbub, is the euthanasia process, where basically the computer will kill her, peacefully if she's not going to survive. And it tries to kill her because her oxygen is too low, and she kind of has to pull out all of her various cords, the umbilical one, and then the one in the toe. And yeah, all this stuff.
But it gets worse,
right? so we got all this, right? But what? And I was like, wait, that the computers, Milo thought that the euthanasia protocol was something that she couldn't do without.
Essential. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, because after she does this, and then she says, hey, can we turn that one off and redirect power from this? The computer's like, yes, we can. I'm like, I don't know, the computer, like, to the point, like the computer is so unhelpful, right? To the point where I thought, is the computer got an agenda? Is it trying to like manipulate her and kill her or something? And it wasn't. It never was. It actually tries to have kind of a sweet ending when she, like, sort of says, oh, I could hug you at the end, when he offers to, like, rearrange the oxygen while she's asleep so she'll have some when she wakes up. But yeah, I this was baffling to me. Like, the solution at the end to deal with the thing, I felt like I thought of this the second they showed there was other pods. I thought of this, and that was like 40 minutes ago. Why is she only just having this revelation now? Why isn't the computer suggesting this? It feels like something that, it feels like a proper backup. If they're expecting that some might get damaged on the way, or some bodies might die on the way, that some of their supplies and resources could be distributed to other pods if need be, that kind of thing. Or, I don't know, maybe just an idea for space travel, maybe have like a general pool of reserves that could be distributed to any of the pods, which seems like a good idea. I know space and weight and all the, well, maybe not weight, because, space, but I know space is at a premium, when you're doing space travel and you get ships and all the rest of it, but it feels like, I don't know, a little bit of reserve that could distribute to it. Some poor planning here on this mission. I'm just going to say it. But yeah, there was too many moments where I felt like the computer almost felt like it was villainous when it wasn't, just because the script needed it to not suggest something until she outright asked for it. And it felt like a script writing mechanic, just so that we didn't get to the solutions too quickly.
Yeah.
And that kind of annoyed me.
I agree. I mean, once the solution came up that she can go into cryo sleep and then she wouldn't be affected at all by the oxygen level, then I understand that there are other components that you need to take care of first. But it really seemed like the computer could have brought that up a lot earlier.
Yeah. So those elements are frustrating because it feels like cheats, and I think what I love about a bottle movie is that it forces creativity to make it all work, because you have to get all the story across with just one or a couple of actors, and you've not got a variety of locations, you've not got a variety of props, you have to all do it in one look. And a lot of the excitement for me is to see how they pull it all off and make all the pieces like fit and make it feel intricate, despite the fact that it is in one location. So, but when you just have the writing kind of cheat, it just kind of devalues it a little bit. It makes it feel less satisfying. I don't feel like I'm getting an intelligent story or an intelligently crafted like piece of excitement, because it's kind of an action movie in a way, because there's a lot of peril and there's a lot of like problem solving, there's a lot of all these things, but it kind of but when the problems and the answers to those problems feel disingenuous, and it feels like, oh, it had to hold back certain information or had to hold back certain things just so that there's the tension there. It all feels very fabricated in the context of the movie itself. And that's a problem. And it's kind of probably the biggest thing that hurts this for me, and why I couldn't get into the basic like enjoyment I should be getting from it. You know, beyond because there's some other things I do like about it, but the basic, she's on her own in a pod and limited resources, limited ideas. She does seemingly have not the internet, but she seems to have like, you know, like a whole database of everything like to look through, and like she can search for
there's
people.
just so many things, like I don't want to say firewalls, but things that are blocking her from being able to access all the information she needs. She doesn't have the ability to give commands to the computer to take control of anything, but she has some access to things, like she can call people so long as she knows who to call, but which is difficult when you have amnesia.
Yeah.
Well, we do find out she doesn't actually have amnesia. She just doesn't have memory because she has never made memory.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, she does have memories, and that the memories are designed to kind of kick in. But the reason why she starts off with nothing and kind of gradually gets like flashes, and then because by the end of the movie, she actually talks like she knows everything very well. It's clearly the process of the cloning, because she's a clone. That's the other big thing, which you've just thrown out there willy-nilly, which we'll get to. Because I think because some of the more interesting stuff to me is the fact that it is in space. I think the shot where she just casually asks, "Hey, can I like see outside? Like, can I see what's out there?" And he turns off like, the filter because of the UV light will, you know, be damaging if she's looking at it for too long. And there's a bit of a jump scare because there's like a floating like body with like a face missing right out there.
Corpse.
But you know, there's a beautiful shot of the camera pulling back and showing just the scope of this ship and how big it is, and all these pods that are like surrounding the edges. This is like
there's some alien planets out there too.
This is like halfway or so throughout the movie. Is it alien planets, or is it? I thought it was still our solar system.
Oh, I thought it was another planet because they've been out for like 12 years.
Yeah, but that's still our solar system in terms of space, though, right? Because they flat out say multiple times that they're going to lose communication soon because she's going to get too far. So I took that as that, you know, they're relatively still quite close to Earth in the grand scheme of things, because they haven't fired, because they keep talking about firing off their nuclear thruster thing, which will actually propel them much quicker to their 35-year trip or whatever it is to this other planet they're going to.
I guess that makes sense because we do see them go into some sort of a warp speed.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you which planet it was, but I assumed it was still like, I don't know, Neptune or something like that. Just because all the other details in the movie told me they weren't that far away yet. So if this was an alien planet that was not in our solar system, I'm like, wait, how good is this communication range that they're still communicating? That's like another plot hole to me.
I guess that's true, because it does seem sort of not too distant future, like within 100 years.
Well, she says her birthday. We know her birthday's, she was born 2003. So, and we know that the real woman is like in her 60s or 70s or something like that. She's an elderly woman on Earth. So, that, you know, puts us at what, 2070 or something like that? And the whole idea behind all this is that humanity's not going to survive another few generations, and it's all top secret. The public's not to know. But to make sure humanity survives in some form, this is not a rescue thing. This is not, you know, people escaping Earth. This is a ship full of nothing but clones to just start fresh, basically, start anew on a new home. On a planet that doesn't sound that great, given that they have to stay in one particular part of the planet. Otherwise, they'll either freeze they'll either freeze to death on one side or they'll burn to death on the other. So
yeah, it seems like pretty limited space.
So they've not got like a whole, but I guess if that's your only option, if that's the only kind of M-class planet in the reachable range, I guess you got to take what you're given.
Well, I guess it would be like a whole ring of just like the Earth like smushed into like a ring. Because if you go a little bit towards like the dark side of the planet, then you can be in like the polar region, or you can go towards the light side of the planet, and then you'll be in like the Hawaiian side of the planet. That's all right.
I think I got hotter than Hawaii. from the description.
Well, yeah, on the extreme ends. But if you just stay on like the Terminator line, then you'll be fine.
Okay. So that's the trip that's happening, and for me the more interesting parts is just to to bring back the other thing you mentioned before, the clone side of things. So the movie actually opens with a rat in a maze, which immediately puts you thinking about, okay, this is an experiment or something.
Yeah, she's being tested.
Yeah,
or she's testing herself.
She's having
like
flashbacks of rats and stuff, and she eventually, of course, figures out who she is, and she looks up her name and finds out she's a scientist, and she's been developing this and this. But again, it's this sort of thing where she has this wealth of information, and she doesn't see that she worked on cloning, or that there was video footage of her being like 70, because she just didn't look for it or look closely enough, because it's all there. It's not concealed from her in any way. Once she actually starts looking for who she is and she has a name, which takes a little bit of time, admittedly, but once she has that information, it's just conveniently she doesn't see certain things to lead her to the clone.
Well, she's also looking for a memory. She's looking for people that she knows.
Yeah.
Not so much herself once she figures out who she is.
Yeah, but there's a whole section where she searches and she sees like, articles about her in magazines and stuff like that. And it's not until later she goes back and looks again and finds video footage of like herself at an older age and things. And I'm not even necessarily saying this is a problem per se, but it kind of goes back to the main problem we had with everything, with all the solutions that were brought up later, where it just felt like, why wasn't this thought of, or the computer suggested it earlier? It doesn't feel like that much of a revelation. It doesn't feel like a, oh my god, I figured out the one in 1 million like idea that's going to save the day. It didn't feel like that at all. I think along those similar lines, the idea that there's just so much that she just casually misses on her first sort of pass through searching. It's not that it's not realistic per se. It's just kind of like, when she did go back and look later, I'm like, oh, so this was just always here to find. Like, it was because it's just a search engine. It's not like it's like hiding behind something. It's just it's a computer folder full of things. She could see any of this at any time if she wanted to. Sure. She's just not asking the right questions. She's just not thinking the right things. But
yeah, even when it's presented, she just doesn't notice. I mean, I didn't notice either. I didn't even think to look at it. But I think she was just so preoccupied with trying to make the memories in her head fit with what she was seeing that she just ignored the things that weren't like obvious.
Yeah, and the big thing is she keeps having memories of her husband. She tries to call her husband and there's no answer. The second number gets a woman who later on turns out to be herself but older, which
that really didn't feel like a big surprise either. I don't know. I think once we see the husband, like he's in one of the pods too, and she like wants to see him, and then she asks why doesn't he have the scar that she remembers him having. I'm like, oh, he's a clone. They must all be clones then.
Oh yeah, that was.
So I guess maybe it wasn't that.
That was quite
surprising.
That was quite late on though. We already heard that he died though. Before that point, because that was the thing, is that as the movie goes on, some of the quick memories, he starts to look like he's got like bruises. He looks kind of sick.
She has memories of him being very sick. It looks like he has the Black Plague.
But not to start. It kind of phases in like a little bit here or there as the movie goes on. And
but the people that she hears that he died from, like, she doesn't really trust, and we don't really know if we can trust them at that point.
Yeah, that's true. That's the other thing as well, is that it kind of makes sense in hindsight, because it's more about how they don't want to like tell this fresh clone that's woken up that she's in a almost certain death scenario, and they don't want to freak her out, so they're basically just stalling until she runs out of oxygen so she'll die, right? But it kind of feels like when they're first being kind of cagey and the answers are sounding a bit shady, it feels like it's building a mystery that's going to be more relative to who they are, and it never actually matters. Like, it's just kind of dropped because it's not ultimately important, but again, it's kind of something that feels like it might be important when it starts, and then it kind of becomes less so as it goes on. Yeah. So again, it's kind of it's another example of like one of the details ultimately fitting into the overall picture, but not actually being that satisfying when you think back on it.
Right. Yeah.
Overall, but no. To get back to the husband though, he starts to look sick in some of the memories as it goes on, and then we hear that he's died. and it makes sense why he's not answering, and it kind of lines up with why he's not answering his thing. And it's herself that says that he's dead. So when we see him in a pod, when she asks if he's there too, and he's not got the scar, it's like, okay, right, so we're dealing with clones, and she realizes she's a clone. The more interesting question this movie poses to me is, and the arc that I think it should have even focused on more, is the idea that she's essentially not really wanting to fight for who she is when she realizes this. She's pretty much ready to just let herself die because her memories aren't real. She's not a real person. She's never been outside this pod. She was grown effectively inside this pod, and she just kind of wants to give up at that point, and it's kind of this heartbreaking kind of thing. Kind of the hopeful, inspirational side to this is that she decides that she wants to live. That decision, that fight for, I'm going to figure this out and come up with a solution because I want to actually live. That my life is still worth living even if I'm not the person that I thought, or these memories suggest I am. And we get explanations about the rats being cloned and how the memories would eventually sort of sink in. So it kind of explains why it's been kind of these fragments, but as the movies went on, she's become more and more fully formed with the memories. And maybe even waking up early maybe is part of the reason why it's a bit iffy to begin with. So I mean, that does kind of make some sense. But that's where I got a bit more interested, because it was like, okay, so this is a character who is effectively a newborn, who is only they say 12 years old, right? Because that's when the journey started. So that's, as a life form, she is only 12 years old. Obviously, she looks like a, I don't know, 35, 40-year-old woman, whatever she is. And she makes this choice she wants to live, and she comes up with this plan, and she won't let the computer perform euthanasia, and that's her fighting for her life. And that's when I kind of really felt like, okay, maybe I can latch out of this character now, because she understands who she is, and it's not just that she thinks she's Liz. She knows truly who she is, and she's becoming her own version of who she is, and she's fighting for her life. She's fighting for survival, and life is worth fighting for. And I did like, as much as I was skeptical on the actual, like I say, the how she figures things out, because it feels a bit cheap and just kind of like that, either her or the computer should have suggested this ages ago. I did like the heartwarming details of her talking to the computer. I liked the I could kiss you right now, all that stuff. The one thing I think the ending kind of makes a mistake of is showing us that she successfully gets to the planet with her cloned husband. I thought that this would have been way better if she just went to sleep and it was left sort of ambiguously hopeful, as opposed to, we're going to give you the money shot of her standing on an alien planet with her husband kind of thing. Yeah. I don't know, it felt a bit...
Or now that she knows what she is, like, she doesn't have to be with him, like she can be her own person. Absolutely,
because that's one of the things that I really liked as well. She makes a recording for the husband clone, because she obviously feels some attachment to him, even though she's technically never met him. And she effectively phrases like, hey, we don't really know each other, like these memories aren't really ours, but maybe we can, if we both survive, maybe we can have a drink and talk about it, and like talk about the shared clone experience or something.
Yeah,
but it comes off in a very different light to her worrying about her husband earlier on, where she's like panicking and thinking her husband might not be alive. And she's having all these memories and blah, blah, blah. But that was where the movie kind of got interesting. But the bizarre thing is that part of the movie is only maybe like 10 minutes long. But by the time we have all those revelations done, that she knows she's a clone and she's making these choices and she's fighting for her life, it becomes, because that's one of the things that makes the oxygen thing a little bit more interesting, is that she seems to care early on when she just thinks she's a person, and then when she thinks she's Liz, she still seems to care about the oxygen. But she's panicking so much about like her memory loss and where she is and what's going on, blah blah blah, that there's so much else that things happen. And then when she gets to the point where she doesn't really seem to care about dying, and like the oxygen timer's ticking down, it doesn't really matter. But it gets to that point where it's at under 2%, and she's told, is there any chance I'll wake up? And part of me thought the movie was going to end with just the computer saying, no, it's next to...
Well, it is a French movie, and they're not known for happy endings.
That's a fair point. But I genuinely thought that it might end with a sort of like, well, you know what? I'm under 2%. I was told that the computer's telling me that I probably almost certainly won't survive that. But I'm still going to take the sedative. I'm still going to go back into the cocoon. in the leap of faith that somehow I might survive, and maybe and that would still be a hopeful ending. But she does, you know, come up with a solution to the point where she can have like 500% oxygen if she wants it, which is, you know, I don't know. So yeah, some of the pieces kind of feel like too difficult for how easy the solution is, and then therefore don't feel satisfying when they sort of come around. The more interesting parts of this film is when it becomes its own thing, and it's about a clone realizing that they can be their own person and they're willing to fight to be that person, and that their life is still worth living. That is by far the most interesting thing. Visually, the most interesting thing is when we actually see space and we see the big shot of the ship and all that. But the mechanics of her being stuck in a pod and trying to figure out who she is and how to survive, for the most part, is underwhelming.
Okay. Well, I mean, I like the beginning of the first half of the movie, because I think it is the halfway point where we realize she's in space, which is also like a fun reveal. But then after that, I felt like a lot of the things that bothered me in the movie showed up at that point, to where I liked it a bit less. I like the first half of figuring out the puzzle, like seeing her limitations and watching her like break down and figure out where she is and who she is and stuff like that. I thought that was a more interesting part of the film. The broader questions, of course, are interesting also that you brought up. I think one of the main problems I have with the movie overall is that they use that ticking time clock approach to where we get all the way to 1 and then she stops it, you know. That thing that gets made fun of in Galaxy Quest, like it always stops at 1. They use that a lot in this movie, to where it doesn't really like it feels kind of tropey and funny.
Well, I don't know if I'd say they use it a lot. They use it
use it twice.
Well, no, they use it once. It's just that once is really long and lasts the whole movie.
Well, they use it also with the euthanasia scene, because it's a countdown until she pulls the thing out the very last second.
Oh sure. I don't know if
she's gonna eject herself into space, and she at the 1 she stops it and says, "Never mind, I don't want to do it anymore."
Okay, that one's fair. I think the euthanasia one's a little bit different, because that's more just fighting and surviving at the last second. That's not a countdown to me. That's just any movie scene.
But
where
there was a
danger.
countdown. Like the computer was counting down during that scene. And at the 1, she pulls out the needle.
Yeah, I don't think that changes the fact, though, that it's not... I don't know. That's different from the bomb's going to go off at 1 second.
Okay.
Or oxygen's going to run out at 1 second.
Or the pod bay door is going to open up and she's going to get blown into space.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. No, I would definitely count the pod opening when she's about to kill herself. Yeah, no, that is definitely... that definitely counts, because it is just that last second. But with the other one, because she's constantly struggling, and it's more about figuring out which part she has to pull out, and some of them are quite disgusting. You know, the umbilical part is nasty.
That part I was very into, like when she started, you know, Keanu Reevesing herself out of the matrix of the pod.
Yeah.
That one was gory. It was worse when she had to put everything back in, though. That was a rough scene, but I was very into it. Yeah,
she has to put her IV back in. She has to put the umbilical
squishy noises
back in. Yeah, that was pretty nasty. Yeah, I think the first half, to go back to that, I think the performance is very good, and the performance is kind of what keeps it together, particularly when she does break down and she gets more emotional. I
have not seen Buried. That there, like if you've seen other movies like this, I have not.
I do like that she, you know, it starts off with very little dialogue from her. It's just kind of the slow unwrapping or breaking out of the cocoon, as it were. That's quite good. I think when I talk about some of the elements in the first half feeling kind of, I don't know, like unfulfilling or cheap to me, and not like they've thought of smart ways to have her like figure out problems. One of them is that, okay, she can call people. Okay, that's fine, you know, be able to communicate and like talk to like well, at least what presents himself as a police officer. Probably he's a guy at NASA who's like, okay, we can't tell what's really going on. So let's just pretend. We'll just pretend.
Sure.
But what bugged me though is there's a lot of tropey shit that's just there to, like, the amount of times Milo the computer says, okay, I'll boost the signal because it's not clear, and then it magically clears up. I'm like, boosting the signal in like a sci-fi thing, well, technically boosting a signal is a thing that can happen. It doesn't really mean anything in the context of a script beyond just, we want it to be unclear and it to be cleared up. And Milo says that he boosts the signal like probably half a dozen times over the first 40 minutes of the movie, in different contexts, where phone calls start to drop out and the signal has to be boosted. I'm like, how much can you boost it? There has to be a limit to how much boosting you can do. Like, what are you doing to strengthen it at this point? Like, it's not like you have unlimited power. Like, what are you doing? Are you ejecting like 5 people in pods, like, over in the next row? Take their life support away so you can boost the signal a little bit? Like,
yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Like, there's just little things like that where it felt like there was fabricated obstacles to make it seem like there was more problems than there actually was. And technically, all movies are fabricated obstacles that a character has to overcome. That's what they all are, if you really want to break it down to it. But good writing, the trick is to make them all feel like they belong in the world and the script in front of the character, and make them feel like they're not just plot devices. And when they're that thin, when they're just, oh, the signal's weak, boost the signal.
It's better than her reaching into her memory through pain in order to find a file number for her husband, though.
I agree. I equally did not like that. It felt, especially since when she sort of, when the woman who turns out to be her older self on the phone tells her to, you know, the answers are in there, like, and then she like triggers it by like hurting herself with the needle. I thought, wait, did they really? I don't feel like they established at this point that she could trigger these memory flashes with pain. I don't know if they clearly set that up at that point yet.
No, I'm not sure. But she's in pain a lot, so, and the memories come through a lot. Maybe it does work out.
But it's not satisfying though, because it's so like
it's usually a memory of like a seed falling from a pine tree. Yeah,
but like a sequence of numbers, a file name. I mean, hell, even when the older woman tells her like the sequence that the code she has to give to the computer to open the pod, it's, you know, it's like it's like 4 digits, then she has to say lowercase, then there's like another 3 digits. Later on in the film, when she's asked for that again, when she tries to kill herself by opening the pod, this time she knows it's in space. Because the first time when she gets these codes, she doesn't know that. And then that's kind of when the woman reveals some of the stuff.
But she doesn't just say you're in space. She says, you know, adjust this and this and this so that the gravity.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make though is that later on in the film, when she has to give this code again, she just remembers it. And I'm like, bullshit. There's no way you remembered an 8-digit sequence like half an hour later. I'll buy that you remembered it in the moment because you sort of said it to yourself quickly in your head. And you like, maybe my memory is just bad. I would never be able to remember an 8-digit sequence later on.
Well, I mean, my memory was pretty good when I was 12. Didn't have a lot of info yet.
I would have equally not remembered that at 12. I'll say that. I don't think age...
I had a lot of phone numbers memorized when I was that age.
I did not. I don't even have my current phone number memorized. There's no need. The phones just remember these things. You don't have to. It's
well,
easy.
I mean, not when I was 12.
Well, yes, because you're an oldie.
Classic joke. Still funny.
Oh dear. Yeah. So, I think this is not a bad movie, and there's definitely some good ideas and some things that I like in here. There's a lot of this, but the sad part is though is that the better version of this I think I would love. Like I think with a different script and maybe a different director, I think I could love this movie. I could love what this movie's trying to do. But because there's so much of it feels just a little bit like they're taking these little writing mechanic shortcuts to just sort of add more tension, or things that I feel like the character should have figured out already, or the computer, like Milo, Jesus Christ, like that damn computer should be suggesting things left and right. And it's like it's like the computer's designed to deny until
not to help the people that he's there to protect.
Until he's directly posed a question. It all feels very poorly thought out from a coding standpoint.
Yeah.
But because we do find out that, and probably what caused the damage in the first place to our pod is that there's an asteroid hit part of the ship, and it killed I think it was 150 people out of the 10,000. So there's still a lot of them left. There's still enough for the colony and whatever. But
yeah.
But yeah, but that's why there's this horrific visual of like a face like blown off when the window reveals itself. So I mean, there's fun ideas, but I think the sad part is that I think there is probably a cheaper but much better version of this that could have existed.
Yeah, like give it to, if he still made good movies like Duncan Jones or something. There's a little bit of Moon in this.
A little bit of Moon, but the Moon that's in it's all very spoilery, so you're not going to tell them why.
No.
Let's spoil these for other movies.
Just a skosh of Moon in this movie.
Yeah, like
it was probably inspired by Moon.
Like, give this to the director who did Coherence, right? Give it to them, because I feel like that's the version of this movie I want to see. Because that's a movie where all the details work, all the details feel so thought out, and when it all connects together, you feel like you're figuring. Because doesn't it fully explain everything? But it feels like as you're going along with the journey, that you're like your mind's being blown with every little thing that connects to something else. In this, every single time it revealed something, and it was like, oh yeah, I guess that works. Like that was the feeling I had almost every time. I was like, yeah, that works. I guess.
Yeah, it was like, even though there were big exciting things happening on the screen and big sci-fi revelations, it was still like, okay, I guess that works. It was just underwhelming for me.
It's underwhelming. I guess part of it is it's a little derivative of other things, but I don't even think that would matter. I think if all the pieces of the mystery were more compelling and didn't feel like they were just there, like it didn't feel as phony as they do in some cases. I think that, but I think more importantly, just more of a focus on the actual arc for the character, where she chooses to want to live her new life, whatever it may be, because that's still worth something, even if she's not this real person from before. I think that is such an interesting, and it's not like a new thing to this film, the idea of like a robot or a clone or something deciding that they want to live and deciding that they are worth something, that they, I mean, hell, even like Blade Runner, as an example of this, the replicants, they always want to live. They want their thing. Well, you like Blade Runner 2049, you can't just say gross when Blade Runner's brought up. So, like
that 4.5 out of 10 movie. I can't remember what I rated it. I think for 4 or something.
The first film, you mean, not 2049?
No. Yeah, 2049 is great.
You have to specify that for the audience at home. Oh, they're all mad at you now for what you said about Blade Runner.
I know. I've given it many goes.
Yes.
Still don't like it.
It's funny. It's a movie that I really want to love. So I for all the movies,
I respect a lot of people who have this on the top of their list.
Yes, it's out of movies that have not worked for me, it's the one that's had the most tries, because I just really want to love it. I really want to love Blade Runner.
Yeah, me too.
And it looks and sounds great. The technical qualities are phenomenal. Like, I love the look of the city. I love all that, but the story is like sleep-inducing, which is a shame. Enhance.
Yeah.
Section B4 by 5-6. Enhance. Anyway, yeah. So I just this is a lukewarm movie with some good ideas and some good moments, but pretty much a lukewarm movie.
Good performance, I'd say.
Yeah. So, would you like to rate it? Is that where we are?
Sure, I will. I will start with the rating. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty good. It was fun to watch a non-American movie. I think this might be my first one for the year. Sad. But it was good. Like, it's a good movie. I'd recommend it if you have Netflix, as most people do. You can check it out. It's fun sci-fi concept, but overall just kind of the same as I feel about a lot of Netflix movies, just a bit underwhelming. So I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay. You're not counting rewatches here because you did watch Godzilla this year. So.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So for a first time watch, you're probably right. But there's at least one thing we did in the show that was foreign. So.
Yeah, okay.
I've watched a few. I've watched a few foreign films this year.
Well, look at you.
A few good ones.
Mr. Fancy Pants.
Well, you know, I try to expand my my cinematic oeuvre.
What does oeuvre mean?
Oeuvre.
Oh, it just means oeuvre?
Well, no, I probably, I don't know if it necessarily works in the context I used it. I think typically you talk about a director having an oeuvre rather than like a viewer having an oeuvre, but it means they're not their filmography per se, but their overall like range of like art, their oeuvre.
Okay.
Yeah. So someone's going to give you a better definition than the comments. Yeah, 6 feels about right, sadly. I wanted to like it more. I really did. I think I would have loved to, I think if you made even if you only fixed one of my 2 major problems, I think you would probably at least bump it up a full point. If you fixed both of my major problems, then it could have been something really special. But as it is, I think it just, it feels like an Alexandre Aja film who, outside of High Tension, which has a pretty divisive ending, admittedly, but outside of that, I've not necessarily loved most of what I've seen of Alexandre Aja, so that's a shame.
I'll take your word for it.
But hey, there you go. That's oxygen. O2. You can let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments if you like. You can, if you made it this far, you can put the word, I don't know, Milo into the comments to let us know you got there. Tara's going to post for the thumbnail. On you go. 3, 2, 1, pause.
What do you want me to do?
There's nothing. I'm probably going to use you laughing afterwards rather than the actual post, to be honest. All right, bring the mic back in. Bring the mic back in.
That's fine.
Bring the mic back in. All right. There you go. That's the show. So let us know what you thought in the comments. Like and subscribe. Liking and subscribing is super important. It is the simple, easy way to help the content out because it means YouTube will recommend it out a little bit more. Tara, why don't you tell them all about Patreon?
Yeah, if you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/SmileFestTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to the reviews 1 day early. And some other shows, you get a whole week early. And you get to vote on what we watch. So please head on over and check that out. Thank you.
Catch us on Twitter at mail_Fuzz for channel updates. I suppose I should tell you what's coming next time, shouldn't I?
Do we know what's coming next time?
I think we do. Don't doubt the system. We do.
We have a schedule, but sometimes there's blanks.
Sometimes there is, but there is not a blank next week. Next week, we reload.
Whoa.
Matrix Reloaded is up next time, which I dare say will probably be a more exciting conversation. Not necessarily a more exciting film, but a more exciting conversations. But that is us. That is the Atomic Cinema Experience. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching sci-fi. And computer, hopefully you're better than Milo. Add salsa.
Est-ce que je peux aller aux toilettes?